Buongiorno a tutti. Today we're going to be speaking of something a little bit different within the realm of living history. But first, ti presento la mia moglie, Gianna de Medici, also known as Francesca.
Buongiorno.
She is my wife in real life as well as out at the fair, which makes it a lot more fun because we understand each other so much better and we're able to play that married couple and play off of each other in a lot of different ways. Today we're going to be looking at different types of jewelry within the world of living history. One of the things that gets picked up on is not just our clothing, but everything that we accessorize it with. From cups to rosaries to paternosters to swords, there's a lot of different things that we use, and some of them actually mean something specific. You've noticed that I'm wearing this gold chain. At the end of it is what's called the Golden Fleece. This is a denotation of being a member of the Order of the Golden Fleece. It's an order that was created by the Emperor Charles, and both Cosimo I and Francesco were inducted into that order because they were the Grand Dukes of Tuscany. There was no other reason for them to be a part of the order other than they were one of the powers of the Italies during the Renaissance. So it's kind of an interesting thing how those work. Another thing that would denote an order is this cross here. This is the cross of Santo Stefano. The Order of Santo Stefano is a military order that was created in Tuscany by the Medici family, and whoever the Grand Duke was, whether it be Cosimo or Francesco or Ferdinando, uh, Francesco's younger brother, they were the Grand Master of the order, and this order still exists to this day. And the Grand Master of the Order of Santo Stefano in the modern day is the um, closest related person to the Medici family, the one that is the closest descendant. Excuse me. And I believe he is a count. Um, I do not remember his name right off the top of my head, but it's an order that was created for military service, and the Medici family has always been at the head of that to give the honors. Now, within the theatrical realm, we also have an order that's called the Order of Santa Zita, and that is for the ladies of San Lorenzo. And Santa Maria, our sister group, that is the northern group. So my wife can explain that a bit.
So, for a modern reference, the Order of Santa Zita would be similar to a sorority in a, college university setting. It is a group of sisters or women who see themselves as sisters, and we recognize each other for our deeds in growing theatrically, growing in our lives externally outside of the fair community, and just contributing to one another. Um, the way that you can recognize us and we recognize our sisters is by a strand of pearls that very very long here, a single strand, each one separated by a knot. And the interesting thing with the pearls in the order of the sisterhood is that you cannot purchase your own strand of pearls. They must be gifted to you for your initial strand. They also must be the cream or white traditional color. For your second set and additional thereafter, you are able to purchase your own, and they can be black, creamy, pinky, greenish, any of the traditional colors that pearls do naturally occur. Um, but it is very special to be given your strand either by another sister of the order or by the Grand Mistress herself.
So then the pearls are similar to when a gentleman is inducted into the order in San Lorenzo and he's given his first pair of spurs.
Yes.
And then, so those are orders that are not necessarily historical, but are historical as well. There are different ways that within the group we are able to recognize service and recognize the contributions of people. Um, I wouldn't call it a citizenship award per se, but citizenship definitely plays a role in being inducted into one of the two orders and moving up within the orders. That definitely has something to do with it because it is about the character of a person, and that's something that we can translate to our customers when they see the strand of pearls. They might make a joke, but then they get a story about how one of her sisters in this order had bestowed them upon her as a gift, and how much they actually mean to her. So they walk in not thinking about something and make a joke about it, but they leave with a lot more knowledge and understanding and an appreciation for what a gift of a string of pearls really means. Um, just like seeing this big cross, if someone sees this, oh, it's a Milanese cross, and then we explain, no, it's the Order of Santo Stefano. This is actually something that was bestowed upon me by our Grand Master, and I've earned it. It's something that's very close to my heart. Um, Obviously, with crosses, we can look at religion as well. And one of the things as Florentines, we're all Catholic. We've had four popes that are Medicis. Catholicism runs deep within the Italies, and it's something that we as Florentines do display on our persons in one way or another. Uh, the time period we play is right at a time when paternosters, which are a simple version of a rosary, and I'll show you some examples here in a moment. Paternosters were on their way out, and what we consider to be a rosary, the modern rosary, was actually on its way in. It was becoming a fashion statement. So, um, the more modern rosaries are a way that you could wear your religion on your person, but also make an exclamation of "I'm fashionable. I'm on the cutting edge of fashion." So a paternoster would be very simple. Yeah, obviously this is a bit ornate, but you would have a single strand. There are 10 beads that you would use for your patters, and then you have your drop, which could be a moon, it could be a cross like this, it could be whatever you wanted, but it was the basic shape of the paternoster that was the most important, because this is used for prayer. This is not something that's necessarily used for me to display my wealth. This one is ornate, and I do keep it on my person at all times, but this is not necessarily something that I would have to keep with me. It's a theatrical choice that we carry our religion, but historically you can see that religion was worn proudly on the sleeve, as it were. For a soldier, they might have something like this. This is a simple thread rosary. This is a more modern type of piece. You'll see that it's the Our Fathers and Hail Marys in a very different pattern than how the Paternoster did. But this would be for someone who doesn't quite have the money to purchase something that would be black pearls with gold and be the most fashionable of the rosaries. And even from here, we see different types of ways to display your religion. The ladies wear a thing that's called a girdle, and it's essentially a metal belt that is beautifully decorated. And the princess here has one that she made herself, just like all of these other pieces, for the most part, have been made by us. And this one has a cherub as its centerpiece. And the cherub is a way for her to dress things up because it is a brass, it looks gold. It's something that's beautiful and large and fashionable, but at the same time, a cherub being a representation of the angels and her being able to wear a sort of religion around her waist. And it even goes further with the actual drop of the girdle. And here you can see that there's a Virgin Mary on one side, and then we have a St. Christopher medal on the other side. So wherever she goes, she's protected by St. Christopher, who is the patron saint of travelers. And St. Chris is the one who carried baby Jesus across the river on his back. So this for travelers, we are travelers in a foreign land. We need all the protection we can get. And she keeps a St. Christopher with her at all times to keep her safe. Now, one of the other things that we have are what are called chains of office. Now, they aren't necessarily chains of office and station, but they are another way to portray your wealth. And only the most affluent people would be able to afford something as such. Wearing rubies and pearls with gold would be something that most folks would not be able to afford. And it's something that, being a Medici, being the family that originated the banking system, we have more money than God. And we can actually bankroll a country like England if we have to for their wars, and we will still loan places money. And this is a way for us to show that. There's a lot of different ways that we portray our wealth, and having beautiful things is always fun because we can tell a fun story with it. One of the other things we have, we love our glass. We definitely love our glass. And each one of these cups is custom and hand blown for us by a person that works out at the fair. So not only are we supporting small business, but we're creating another thing that we can tell a story about with our character. We can talk about how this was the finest glass brought in from Venice just for us. And we can tell, even though the Florentines and the Venetians don't necessarily get along during this time frame because of city-states, we can talk about how the best glass blowers in Venice are the people who make what we drink from. So it's another interesting thing that, while it might not be considered jewelry in today's standard, it is definitely jewelry in the context of the Renaissance. Just like we use pocket watches, we use watches in a lot of different ways. The watches of the Renaissance, while this is not quite 100% correct, is a somewhat approximation. The watch would not be flat and worn on the wrist or flat and worn in a pocket. Typically, the watch would be a ball like this, and it would be worn around the neck because this was an expensive piece of jewelry. And what better way to show your wealth than to have a watch displayed around your neck? The ladies would have fans, and the fans would be adorned. Now, this one in particular, the lovely princess actually made.
So, for a modern version of construction, this was put together with a few interesting things. It was a cutlery handle and some other things. But in the time period of which this would have been made, maybe it wouldn't have necessarily been just metal. I've seen portraits where there is enameling, there is stonework, wire work. The handle itself was typically very elaborate, especially as you got higher in the classes. Ostrich feathers themselves were a sign of wealth because feathers were an expensive luxury. And then to have a feather dyed the color that you wanted to match your outfit or something like that, not an easy process. And during that time period, a somewhat lethal process. Fabric dyes that we have now are very safe. They're non-toxic. During the Renaissance period, to get the color white, you would use lead. Blue was made from cobalt. Green was made from arsenic. So not safe, definitely not safe to have about you. So therefore, something expensive because the process was not easy to create. And as you can tell, just looking at this, it took a large number of feathers to create this. I think, if I remember correctly, I have close to 30 ostrich feathers of varying sizes put together in this fan. So for the time period that it was made, it would have been a very expensive piece to have had commissioned.
And the jewels.
And the jewels, yes. So pearls, a jeweled brooch, and then a mirror on the back side. All of which would have been costly as well.
And that amethyst would have been hand cut instead of being cut by a machine like it would be today. It would have been cut by a jeweler by hand with with one of his eye monocles, one of the triplet lenses
Yes.
that they use. But not just fans are jewelry. We go even further. The defense weapons of the citizens, the rapiers and the daggers, those are something that were considered jewelry as well. You spent a lot of money to get that made because you had to find a good blacksmith who was willing to do the work for you, and each piece was unique to the individual. I have in my possession one dagger, which is black oxide and brass, that I've had since I was 20 years old. So I've had it for almost 18 years at this point. That also has a rapier that goes with it. And while these are very simple, this is still a Cadillac. This still would cost as much as buying a brand new Cadillac in today's standards. But then we also have something ornate and intricate, and you can just imagine who these belong to when you see the cherubs on them. These are actually this and its big brother, who is 41 inches long, and we will do this with. They are extremely ornate, and they are actually taken off of molds from the Armory Museum in Bologna. These weapons were made by a company called Deltin, who works out of Italy, and they were special ordered in last year, and in today's money they were about $1,200 for the set, but you can consider that they would cost upwards of $50,000 to $75,000 in Renaissance money. They were not cheap. It was a way to display your wealth on your hip and protect yourself at the same time. And it's a beautiful way to do it. Most duels would only last 3 to 5 seconds because of length and length of the weaponry and the skill level of the individuals involved, because more often than not, the gentlemen did not know how to use the weapon that they had on their hip. They had spent all their time earning the money to buy the weapon as opposed to spending any time learning how to defend themselves properly. But that's a topic for another day. As you can see, there's many pieces that we wear, that we have, that we show off at the fair. Each one has its own story. Each one is a point of interest for a different customer at one point or another during our day, and we can tell a story about it. All of these pieces are living history to us, and they are a way for us to draw that audience in and create that much more interest and understanding in what we do. You know, if we're doing our job right, they don't know that they're learning, even though they are, and they're having a blast in the process doing it, and they can't wait to come back and see it all again. So, until next time, my friends, buona giornata, merry meet,
Merry part, and merry meet again. Hey.
See? Not so bad, right?
Yeah. You'll know who these belong to.
You can just guess who these belong to with the cherubs on
I was
them.
gonna say, with all my angel shit.
She's the angel of death. Of Towers blocks.
I gotta replace that block so that I can keep it. And I gotta sign it.
We need to
Replace it anyway.
We need to get a few sets of block. We need to get a couple 2x4s and actually make a bunch.
Or we could just put.
I like our award blocks. I want to keep those.
One day I'd like to make an entire set out of award blocks.
At the rate we're going, we'll have them. Just no more COVID years.
Yeah.
We have 2 or 3 of them. We have 3, don't we?
I think we have 3. Because you have 2 and I have 1.
Yeah. So they have a gracious host for a couple of years. That's 2.
Okay. What are we doing next?
I don't know.
Okay.
I did language. Hope it didn't die halfway through.